Okay, so I have a lot to say about this video from Enzel Ganger. Uh, he has 1.18 million subscribers. His video, Should We Stop Having Babies? Anti-natalism Explored. Um, I'll just warn you right now that I can be a slow talker. I've gotten some complaints about that, so if you are intolerant of somebody that does not talk fast enough for you, then go ahead and go up to the play speed, the playback speed on YouTube, and adjust it and make it go faster. So, anyways, anti-natalism. So in this video, Enzelganger talks about uh, David Benatar's uh, version of antinatalism, where Benatar suggests that there is a kind of state of non existence that is preferable to existence. Um, he does this whenever he says that it would be better to not exist, or however he states it exactly. He the sentiment is that it is better to not exist than to exist. Um, and here Enzo Ganger even says he was talking about how existence can disturb the blessed calm of non-existence, and he repeated that again here. The great calm of non-existence could actually be a better state. A better state than existence is what he's referring to when he says better state. Um, and a lot of the imagery that Enzo Ganger used in this video uh, kind of implies that before we were born, there was like a black void, a peaceful, as he says here, a calm non-existence, or what could be interpreted as like a calm black void or something like that. As Richard Dawkins put it, peaceful oblivion. He once said that, but I think Richard Dawkins retracted that in an interview with Michael Shermer. Um, but this sentiment is very common among a lot of atheists and naturalistic or materialistic minded people. Uh, this idea that before you were born, it was kind of like you were experiencing an experience of no experience, which is nonsensical because you can't experience your own non existence. So I say things like, well, if you were never born, then instead of it being your experience right now, then it would be the experience that one of the experiences that are being done by one of the living brains right now. So if you were never born, if you didn't exist, and it wasn't your experience occurring right now, then it would be one of the experiences that are occurring right now, which is one that is being done by one of the living brains. Because you wouldn't be in some black void uh, existing in a peaceful black void uh, waiting to be born. And, you know, if you go to a cemetery or if you see a dead animal on the side of the road or wherever you see a dead thing, or if you think of your dead grandmother or your dead great grandmother, she is not in a black void right now. Her consciousness ceased to be done by that particular brain. that particular brain, which was referred to as your grandmother. Um, so she isn't, all these dead people and dead animals. They're not in some kind of deprivation experience where it's just like an endless, eternal black void of nothingness, um, as he defines it here, a blessed calm of non-existence. Um, and many atheists imply this all the time. And my point is that Benatar is implying this whenever he says that to not exist is good. Um, because you don't get to appreciate not existing. You didn't appreciate the fact that you didn't exist before you existed. Um, Now, I get a lot of complaints that, well, are you saying that we should just, have as many kids as we want and all that? No, I'm not saying that. There are definitely situations where we should not uh, bring people into existence. We shouldn't cause new people to exist. Like, if, for instance, they're going to be born into a life of slavery, we shouldn't do that. Or a life of being abused by parents, uh, or similar situations where, or a world where it's just perhaps an endless nuclear winter or something, another ice age, and in other situations like that where it's just not ideal for no one would want to live in those situations. But yeah, only experience is experience. So if you here's another thought experiment that I use all the time, and it's derived from a thought experiment that philosopher Tom Clark used in his essay called Death, Nothingness, and Subjectivity. Um, so imagine that you and every sentient being in the universe, all consciousnesses that exist, that are being done by brains right now, all over the universe. Imagine that every single one of them died. And so there's just no brain in the universe or anything else that is doing consciousness anywhere. No brains are doing consciousness anywhere in the universe. But then a little bit after that, now all these dead people and animals and everything else, they're not in a black void right now. They simply do not exist. But then a million years later, or maybe a short time after they all died, a single sentient conscious being comes to exist somewhere in the universe. Doesn't matter where in the universe, just somewhere in the universe. And so that is the only experience or consciousness that is occurring now. So rather than all those dead people's consciousnesses being in a black void or something like that, the only experience that could come after their death is the one and only experience that is occurring, the one and only experience that is being done by a brain. Because we can say it's the only experience that exists, and don't confuse my use of the word exists as meaning that consciousness exists like your hand exists. I'm not saying that consciousness is a tangible object. I'm just saying it is something that the brains do. I just use the word exists in this context just because it's shorter than saying that it is done by a brain. So, anyways, in this thought experiment that I just mentioned, the only consciousness, the only experience that exists after all the other consciousnesses ceased to be occurring is that's the only experience there is. So if everybody died and then there was one consciousness occurring, then that's the experience that comes next after everyone's death. And so again, if you were never born, if you never came to exist, it would be some other experience being caused or done by one of the brains that uh, do exist, one of the brains that are doing consciousness. Um, and this is an idea that was brought to my attention by what Tom Clark calls generic subjective continuity. I mentioned his essay earlier, and he coined the term generic subjective continuity in that essay. And so, like I said, only experience is experienced. So you're not going to, uh, be in a peaceful black void after you die, or if you had never existed. So let's say Benatar's anti-natalism was successful, and the entire human race stopped having kids, and we eliminated all uh, human brain caused or human brain done consciousnesses. So there's no more human consciousnesses. But wait, there's the consciousnesses being done by the animal brains. So again, it would be one of those it would be all of those experiences that would be the ones that are occurring. So you wouldn't, in this scenario, you wouldn't be in a black void. Instead, it would be, if you died, it would be one of the experiences that are being caused or done by the brain of an animal. Go back to my the first thought experiment. I said everyone dies, and then one consciousness comes to be caused by one brain. It's the same scenario. So it's inescapable. Uh, conscious experience cannot escape conscious experience. Um, it's difficult to put this idea into words, but I feel it's very important. Like, some people get pretty annoyed with me, even like commenting on this Enzelganger's video here. I was commenting and I was trying to let people know, like, hey, Benatar's argument is flawed. The premise of his argument is flawed. So imagine that I have this idea. So imagine that there's a room and it's full of people, and they're the only ones that exist, period, in the entire universe, whatever. It's just them. They're the only ones that exist. And then, let's say there's like 5 people. And then 3 of them die. Now there's only 2 consciousnesses. And then they have the option of having kids or not, but they decide not to have kids as 2 people. And so one of them dies. And so now there's just one consciousness that's occurring in the entire universe. And so that's the only experience there is. Now that person in that room is going to be very lonely and miserable. And so this situation shows that, well, actually, maybe it's better to have others uh, there in that room with you, other conscious beings to share life with, or to, so you don't be lonely. But then there's people, so it's like a matter of preference. There's some people that they would prefer to be alone, and there's some people that would prefer to be with 3 people, or some people would prefer to be with 6 people, or more or less, and so on and so forth. It all depends on the situation. Um, so then, let's say everyone in the room dies, and they're all gone. Those people are not in some kind of a black void. There is not a blessed calm of non-existence, or a great calm of non-existence. There is just that they don't exist. There's no eternal oblivion, or peaceful oblivion, or nothingness. They just don't exist. But if a million years after that, a consciousness is done by some other brain somewhere else, then that will be the experience that came directly after. From the point of view of consciousness, it would be as if that experience came directly after the other experiences that had ended. And when I say that, I don't mean to imply that anything transfers over into the from the dead person into the being that's born millions of years later. Nothing transfers. It's just a matter of whether or not there is experience being caused by a brain or not, or being done by a brain or not. Because as I keep saying, only experience is experience. So if you had never been born, then yeah, it'd be one of the experiences that are occurring, as opposed to a black void. I know I keep like repeating things uh, while I'm making this video, but I feel like a lot of people don't get it unless I use some repetition sometimes, repeating myself. Because honestly, a lot of people don't get it. Like Sam Harris was talking about generic subjective continuity. Now, whatever you think about Sam Harris's politics and stuff like that, he still makes really great points, like his points on free will and the self as an illusion. And he makes other great points, but you might not agree with him on everything. But yeah, he recently did a few podcasts where he brought up generic subjective continuity, uh, and Tom Clark's essay, Death, Nothingness, and Subjectivity, which can be found on naturalism.org in the philosophy section. I highly recommend reading that essay. It's very good. And let's see if there's anything else I need to touch on here. I'd say that's about it. So, yeah, this needs to be addressed, and I mean, I do appreciate a lot of what David Benatar says, um, but this specific part of his argument is, which is basically a very key component, if not the most important part of his argument, that it's flawed, and he sees non-existence as a thing that can be appreciated, whether he likes or not. Like, let's say I'm thinking about having a kid. That kid, that the concept of this kid, the kid isn't existing in a waiting room a black void waiting room for me to decide whether or not I'm going to have a kid or not. No, it just doesn't exist at all. And the only experiences that are occurring are the ones being done by the brains that do exist. So those are the only experiences there are. So it doesn't, in a sense, it doesn't really matter if I have a kid or not, and like they start suffering in the world and all that, like everybody else, because the consciousnesses that do exist, that are occurring right now, they are experiencing suffering and stuff. And as Benatar says, life ultimately and unavoidably leads to suffering. And some people criticize me and saying that that's not what Benatar is saying. And you can look at my other videos on this topic and read the comments. And a lot of people, I don't know, they deny that Benatar says the things that I'm saying. But if you watch, I highly recommend you watch Enzel Ganger's video on this Should We Stop Having Babies, Anti-Natalism Explored. Definitely watch that, and then maybe after you watch it, come back and watch this one again, the one you're looking at now. But yeah, I think I've pretty much covered everything, but I feel like there's still some things I wanted to say that I cannot remember right now to say. But anyways, thank you for watching, and yeah, share this and like it if you don't mind. Thanks.